Welcome to our podcast. My name is Monica Holland, and today I'm very, very excited to interview Shantell, who is a certified GAPS coach, and GAPS is a medicinal protocol designed by Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride. She's also a psychosomatic therapist specializing in gut health and trauma. Shantell is as a neuro-affective touch therapy practitioner. She integrates the mind-body connection through intentional mindful touch to bring the unconscious memories held in the body into conscious awareness. So I personally have known Shantell. We've been soulmates and supporting each other for a few years now. And I know, Shantell, that you personally recovered from a premenopause and chronic fatigue thanks to the GAPS diet. But the reason I wanted to talk with you today is actually your mom's story, your mom healing story, because I know that she's been suffering from a severe stage of ulcerative colitis, which is a very severe inflammatory bowel disease. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your mom's health story. So how long she suffered and what sort of symptoms perhaps she was experiencing and what she tried before.
Hi, Monica. So, yeah, my mum, she was diagnosed when she was 23 years of age, and she was pregnant with my brother at the time, and I was born 3 years after that. And pretty much all of my childhood, I just remember my mum being very unwell, glued to the toilet bowl. So, yeah, constantly diarrhea, losing a lot of blood. She was heavily medicated. So she was on medication, yeah, the whole way through until she was in her nearly 60 when she was welcome to GAPS. But yeah, the medication for her, it was, I just remember she'd always be like, "Dad, take my medication." And we would be like sometimes looking on the ground if she had forgot her medication, like it just completely controlled her mind. And yeah, it's just traumatizing even talking about it, reliving so much of that to now know where she is now. She's just absolutely thriving. But yeah, her symptoms, she would have relapses every 8 months and have to be on prednisone, which is a steroid, put on a lot of weight. I remember when this would happen, she would be eating rice and bread because that's what the doctors would say. You need to take all the fiber out and get on all the starch food. And, so she'd be having these foods which we know aren't healing. They're not doing the job. And, the medication would kind of mop up the mess. And then 8 months later, she'd have another relapse and then have to go back on heavier doses of her medication. So there was no healing, I guess, modality for her. It was just going through the mainstream, the way, listening to the doctors, being heavily medicated, being on a low fiber diet. And it was, from 23 to pretty much her late 50s that she suffered from this illness. Yeah.
So from what you're saying, I'm doing a quick math here. 23 when she was diagnosed and she started being medicated up until almost 60. So is it fair to say that most of her adult life, so almost 40 years, she'd been medicated? Because obviously I can relate with, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which progressed to a life-threatening stage. And most of my adult life, I was also on steroids, immunosuppressants, and although when you take them, you start feeling better because they suppress symptoms. But there is always a price to pay because the root cause of the illness is not addressed. So it always comes back, and quite often it comes back stronger, worse, and quite often it starts affecting other parts of the body. And you've mentioned that your mom's mental health was affected as well. And I remember when you personally told me the story of your grandma, and I just wanted you to share a little bit more about how your grandma's health was affected by being medicated for a really long time, and how it then impacted your mom's decision into, hey, I need to stop that Western medicine approach and I need to kind of look for natural ways of healing. Could you tell us a little bit more of that part of the story?
Yeah, so my grandmother, she had a bladder lift in, I think it was her early 50s, and she actually came out of the anesthetic with myasthenia gravis, which is an autoimmune disease, and you lose control of your muscles. So not being able to blink, swallow, lifting the arms. It's quite similar to MS, but, you know, a bit different. But when she was diagnosed with this, there was only 2 people in Australia at the time, and she was a guinea pig for this illness. And again, she was put on prednisones. And when she was in her 70s, she had no cartilage in between her bones left. So it was bone on bone. And she was all there in the mind. You know, she was just such a beautiful, thriving woman that could do so much, and she was very involved in the community, but she was in so much pain. So my mum had to move in with her to look after her when I was 16. And yeah, it was just, she was bedbound. It got to the point that she could not leave her bed. I actually did a lot of research in her illness, and in Florida they use cannabis oil for myasthenia gravis. So it was just getting legalized in Australia at the time. And I remember speaking to her GP. I had to get the approval from the GP to try her on cannabis oil. And the GP was like, no, no. And I was like, would turn up with all these research papers, like, no, I really think my nan needs this. Like, it's anti-inflammatory. Then we can try and get her medication down. Because I could see how much it was affecting my mum's life. Looking after her. Anyway, we ended up getting her legalized for cannabis oil, and she was the oldest woman to be legalized in Australia, and it was incredible. I remember going up to see her the day after she first had her first dose of cannabis oil, and she was up making herself breakfast. She had a shower, and my mum was just sobbing and was like, oh my God, like she's out of her bed. You know,
Wow.
she always had pains in her legs. And so my mum, because my nan had been on similar medications, my mum, you know, seeing, well, you know, I'm going to get to this age where I am going to be the same as my mother. You know, I'm just going to be bedbound. My daughter's going to have to look after me, or I'll go. My mum was always like, I'm going into a nursing home, you know, and she just knew that she couldn't keep going down that route. So, you know, I was always on so many different diets because of my own health journey, very unwell, and, you know, vegan, vegetarian, paleo, you name it, on everything, juice fasting. And I think that was probably like, my mother followed everything with me. And just before, like, I was on GAPS, I remember I had on juicing, and that did help because, you know, it was a liquid fast, taking all the fiber out. But as soon as she would stop and go on to her normal foods, then, you know, it would just, another relapse would happen. So she started on GAPS, and she started on her chicken stocks, and we're doing no plant GAPS. And it was like day and night that you just seen her start to heal and start to thrive and start to not be going to the bathroom all the time. Me and my husband at this time were looking after her because she was so unwell. We were talking about, you know, Mum, maybe it's best you go and get your bowel disconnected, have a rest. She wouldn't be able to go to the supermarket to go and do her grocery shopping because she would be in diapers And, you know, it was just like in and out the shop, like completely losing control of her bowels. We had our daughter, you know, we had this newborn, and yeah, so yeah, like GAPS just completely changed her life.
So for those who are listening to our chat here, no plant GAPS is one of the spectrum of the GAPS diet, which basically focuses on animal-based foods only. So Dr. Natasha designed that protocol, especially for those with the most severe issues, not only digestive issues like ulcerative colitis, which your mom was affected by Crohn's, diverticulitis, SIBO, and other severe digestive issues, but also severe mental issues, including schizophrenia and other complex conditions like FPIES and so on. So, so tell me, obviously, your mom seeing what is happening to her mom and the impact of that medication, taking medication over all these years, and what is the prognosis for her, let's say later lives, that kind of, you know, probably woke her up a little bit. But what was that turning point for her to actually stop consuming any plant matter? Because many people are just very skeptical. They afraid to remove plant matter because they are afraid that they're going to develop nutritional deficiencies, mineral deficiencies. They just do not even comprehend that that's an healing option. So do you perhaps know what triggered that decision in your mom?
Yeah, well, I was at the time suffering from severe eczema. So she watched me heal from eczema through GAPS, and then started to do my training through Dr. Natasha, and we had to have our case study, our client case study. And I remember at the time, like, I actually asked one of my friends who her child was suffering from severe eczema, and I was like, would you, you know, like to be my case study? And she was like, yes, 100%. And then she was mentally unwell at the time, and she was like, I don't think I can commit to it. And I was like, okay. And I was thinking, well, who am I going to do? And I just felt like I didn't want to ask my mum, because I had, you know, taken her through so many different diets that I was like, I just want to know more before I, you know, I take her on as a client essentially. And anyway, and then I just thought, no, I need to do it now. This is like, I just feel like I'm going to lose my mum.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember speaking to Dr. Natasha, and she was like, no, let's take your mum through this. Like, we're going to be able to heal her. And because she was doing a, you know, a bit of intro, but intro, there was the vegetables in there, so the fiber, and then, you know, we would see a bit of a really relapse happen. So we started her on the stocks and just some protein and eggs. And 3 months she was on this diet, and she had a lot of inflammation to lose. And she went from a size 14 down to a healthy size 10, and she was just thriving. She looked beautiful. She had so much energy. I remember like watching her turning up and watching her mow the lawn, and I was like, oh my God, you know, my husband had to always do this. It was amazing how much energy she had. And she would say, I just can't believe how good I feel. And I'm just having like stock and meat. And so we had her on this for 3 months, and was slowly starting to introduce some probiotics, some kraut juice. And then I came across goat's whey, goat's milk. I remember speaking to Dr. Natasha, and she was like, we need to get some goat's whey into her. And my mum was going up to the Northern Rivers to see her friends. At this point, actually, my grandmother had just passed away, and my mum was on this road trip up north to she dug all these bulbs out of her garden, and because that was my nan's wish. She said, when I pass away, I want you to just travel, because, you know, my mom had been looking after her for so long. She was unwell herself, and she said, I want you to travel, and I want you to take these flowers and plant them along the way. And that's what my mom did. And anyway, she got to the Northern Rivers, and I said to her, Mom, like, try and find someone who has goats up there and get some some raw goat's milk, and I'll teach you how to get the whey off it, and that's what we're going to start you with. And so we introduced goat's whey, and again, she just this another like leap of her healing journey. So my mum actually came back and she sold her house. She bought a farm in the Northern Rivers, and she now has a goat farm.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so that's it was going through no plant gaps and bringing the probiotics in, and my mum is just a whole new woman. Like, she literally is back in her 20s reliving her life. And she every day, every time I speak to her, she's just always saying, like, I'm just so thankful for you. And I'm like, I'm so thankful for Dr. Natasha for her work. Because honestly, if it wasn't for no plant gaps, my mum would not be here today. No way. She would not be here. No. So
I'm getting so emotional. Shantell, I'm getting so emotional. It's so humbling to hear another miraculous recovery on no plant gaps. And it's just so inspiring because she suffered her whole life on heavy medication for 40 years. 40 years. Within 3 months, she started seeing improvement. 3 months. That's nothing, absolutely nothing. And I actually just wanted to circle back to what you said about, like, how long did she drive to that northern territory to get that goat's milk? I believe that you've mentioned she had a friend there, but how long did it take her to, just to drive there from your home?
it's a good, like, about 10 hours, probably 11 hours. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So I salute to your mom for willingness, dedication, healthy level of stubbornness, because you need to have healthy level of stubbornness to drive 10 hours to find a goat's milk. Yes, she was visiting her friend, but then she made a very bold decision to sell her house and to buy a farm with goats just to get to the deeper level of healing. Is so inspiring. I like everyone who is listening to this one, because quite often when I see clients, quite often, sadly, I hear, I cannot find raw milk. So I cannot make goat's whey or goat's kefir or goat's yogurt or whatever that dairy is. Or I cannot find a good farmer. Or this farmer lives 2 hours away. I don't have time for that. I think your mom's story she's such an inspiration. She's such an inspiration to me, because sometimes, those excuses, they creep up in our lives saying, I don't have time, I don't have that money, I cannot find it. And yet your mom is proving everyone that if you put your mind into something, I think the process is, if you start seeing some benefits like your mom did within 3 months, after so many years of suffering, she started seeing benefits of no plant gaps. Then something opened up in her mind and she said, like, I'm doing it because I can see I will heal. And she pushed all her resources, everything she had, to make that change happen. I salute to her. Honestly, I salute to her. So with the raw milk, is quite, for many people across the world, is challenging to access raw milk, because many countries like Australia, it's illegal. Here in the UK, in Scotland, it's illegal, but in England, it's legal. So, some of my clients in Scotland, they just drive down to England to get raw milk. The same in USA. Some of the states, you can buy raw milk, but in some states you cannot. In Canada, it's illegal. So people need to be a little bit more creative in terms of how to find. What kind of advice you've got for those people who know that the milk is illegal in the country? How to find a source of raw milk?
Yeah, well, again, like, even me just talking about raw milk in Australia, like, it's illegal. So I personally consume it as bath milk, Cleopatra bath milk. That's how I consume my milk, because my mum still lives 4 hours away. But every time she comes to my house, I'll have frozen goat's milk, a supply of it. But it's, reaching out to your local community and just creating relationships, because there's always someone who has a cow and, is milking it themselves, and they may swap you something for bath milk.
Yeah. And I would just add to it. I would always connect with the Western A Prize leader chapter. So if you're listening to this interview, just go to the Western A Prize Foundation website, find a local chapter wherever you are in the world, and drop them an email. The other options are go on a Western A Prize Facebook group, on the GAPS Facebook groups, and just keep asking questions. Because if you don't ask questions, you don't get answers. So there is always a way. If there is a will, there is a way. And Shantell's mom is the proof of it as well. So Shantell, apart from obviously challenges with accessing raw milk and driving 10 hours and selling her house and buying a new farm, what are the challenges your mom was facing when she started implementing no plant gaps? If any, if maybe, maybe the goat's milk.
There wasn't anything. Actually, we first had her on beef. We first had her on beef, and she didn't tolerate that too well, the stock. So we know, beef, especially for many people that need to be coming onto no plant gaps, we leave beef out for a while until we are healing, and then we can transition onto that. So I remember that was probably one that, it was just a lot of she's kind of had a lot of different, I'm going to say different diarrhea, because every time when I think about her, her boob mouth movements, there was a lot of blood in that. So, a lot of flushing that was causing with the beef. But that was pretty much the only, the little, I guess, complication there with it.
Yeah, beef can be quite tricky for those with severe digestive issues. Some can tolerate it from very beginning, which is fantastic. But most of my clients, they cannot touch beef because for the same reason you've mentioned about your mom, they cannot just tolerate it. But it's so wonderful to hear your mom recovery story after so many years of suffering. So you've already mentioned that your mom bought a farm, that she's now living as if she was 20 again. So she definitely transformed her whole life. How her recovery impacted not only her life, but your life and the rest of the family?
So my mum's completely off medication. So that's that's incredible. Anyone that's listening to this and is on colitis, like, they would probably just be like, what? Like, I think it's like the anxiety of coming off the medication too is quite hard. So yeah, she's on full gaps. She's, even the thought of her coming off full gaps, she's like, no, I don't need to be having anything else. Like, and we know these foods are in the most pure state. So she's so nourished and thriving. Even when I talk about gaps, I hate saying like diet, because I'm like, it's like, no, it's the way we all should be eating. We know that. But I just feel like me and my brother, we both feel like we have I don't even want to say our mum back, because we never had a mum that is our mum that we have now. Completely reformed. Like, she's just a whole new woman. I guess the mum that we always wanted, that's what we have now. And yeah, it's just so beautiful to see. And she's just always in the kitchen cooking, and loves that. And that's, something, when it comes to the journey of gaps, you do spend a lot of time cooking from scratch, but it's prioritizing your health to do that. That's the most important thing. And you know, she has a beautiful little granddaughter who's my daughter, and I just feel like she gets to relive the way she wishes she brought me up and the way she got to interact with me and be able to mother me. She now gets to have that second chance with my daughter. So
amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So it's not only impacted her life, but it's impacting 2 generations. It impacts you. It impacts your daughter, which is extraordinary because, you know, a little bit of meat stock, a little bit of whey from goats, kefir, and people can transform their lives to the levels they can. I suspect that your mom didn't even imagine that she can be so healthy when she started that journey. I think we all have a very little faith and belief in our body's capability to heal. But when we start any spectrum of gaps, but in particular, if we in that severe kind of bracket, when we start no plant gaps, the real healing, the very deep healing happens. So I'm very pleased that I've learned, and we're sharing your mom's story here to inspire others not to be afraid to you know, to explore the option of doing no plant gaps. So Shantell, for somebody listening to us, what would you recommend them if they are kind of thinking maybe no plant gaps is the right option for me, but I still don't know, I'm afraid? What should they do?
So Dr. Natasha's blue book, start there. She's got a world full of knowledge. Yeah, it's incredible. And of course, your amazing course that you have developed, your No Plant Gaps online course. It's incredible. It's so simplified. And, you know, when you are so unwell, just booking appointments to see a practitioner can be very hard because there may be a day that you can't even have, you know, a Zoom online meeting. So being able to have a course that you can follow to get, you know, so much knowledge from and to start the process to heal. It's you've done such a great job, Monica. It's really good.
Well, I'm very grateful to Dr. Natasha because it was a very long collaboration. I've researched a lot. I've learned a lot. I went through no plant gaps many times. It saved my life. I'm very grateful to my clients who were following no plant gaps, and I was learning with them and through their experience, because, you know, every person is different, and I just wanted to incorporate all this knowledge and wisdom in that online course just to give people, you know, the plan, what to do, what to take into consideration, how to implement things, how to troubleshoot things, just to make sure that everyone does it safely. Because, you know, your mom had a benefit of having you, a GAPS coach who understands how food affects the body, how we can heal the gut lining, how we can heal the rest of the body. So I think, you know, she not only had that glimpse of how she's going to heal her body, but she had that support from you. And many people, as you've mentioned, they cannot even get on Zoom or face-to-face appointment because of constant diarrhea. So, you know, when you glued to the toilet, you glued to the toilet. Or being bedridden. Sometimes I see clients, I actually don't even see clients, I see the moms, I see their daughters, because they are bedridden or they are in such a state they cannot comprehend to have a discussion, a conversation on Zoom. So for those people, you know, having access to that knowledge is sometimes life-saving. Hi, just a quick note. As I continue to provide you with free content, I am reminded of the power of community and sharing. If you find value in what you hear, I kindly ask you to share this video with your family, with your friends, and with other community members. So let's join hands in spreading the knowledge and benefits of no plant gaps, detox modalities, and healing. And remember, if you are eager to explore further, our online training is just a click away. But Shantell, there's another thing I wanted to talk with you, because another extraordinary story you shared with me is how you've saved a kangaroo, and how you basically transformed that little baby kangaroo's life. That kangaroo was dying, that kangaroo was abandoned. And I think it, yeah, I would love for you to just share that story about the kangaroo.
Yeah, so in Australia, I live on 1,600 acres and a lot of bushland and a lot of kangaroos. And one day I had this kangaroo that turned up on my doorstep without a mother. And its mother had been hit by a car. And I had to start looking after this beautiful little Joey. And it's a formula called Wombaroo, and it's cow's milk with the lactose taken out, and it's got some vitamins and minerals. Sadly, it's got vegetable oils in there. But I know. It's this formula that I had to end up giving the kangaroo, and it's so touch and go because, of course, then they're not tolerating the formula, and you've got to get them used to it. So again, he would be losing weight and having diarrhea, and then I started to do poo shakes with him. So going around and finding a healthy kangaroo. So I would actually get a mum that, had a Joey in her pouch, the similar size to my little Joey, collect the stool of the kangaroo, put them in some hot water, and then sieve it. And I would, get this liquid, which was broken down feces, and mix some of that in with his milk, and it helps to rebuild the gut microbiome. Incredible. So yeah, this is how you transition them onto the milk, and to be able to build their gut flora, and picking out the grass for them and pulling out some soil, so they're getting the soil. And you have little pouches that you make pillowcases pretty much, and put some grass in there with the dirt. And so it was just incredible to we know the link between our gut, our microbiome, and seeing how this all connected to now having this kangaroo that he's probably about 3 years old now, and he's completely wild and free. He's on my property, doesn't want anything to do with me anymore. Being a male, they go off, they follow the ladies. So I actually have another one at the moment that his mum also has passed away and doing the same thing, and he's thriving. So it's it's
Wow.
lovely.
Wow, I absolutely love this story about the kangaroo. And when you told me the first time I've heard about this story, that you were actually giving him his own poop and to help him recover, and now he's thriving. There is so little we understand about microbiome. There's so little we understand about our own poop. And interesting story. Just recently, I was researching a situation which currently happens in Poland, where there are 13 hospitals which are experimenting on when a woman's got a cesarean section instead of natural birth through the birth canal. The nurses, previously, what they would do after the baby was born through the cesarean section, they would basically put their fingers into anus of that woman, of the mother, and if there was any even poop or whatever residue, they would smear it on the baby's chest, on the baby's skin, just to help with developing natural microbiome from that baby. Because we know when the baby is born through the birth canal, it swallows mother's microbiome when it goes through the canal. If the baby is born through the cesarean section, it doesn't have that opportunity. But now, what I've read, those 13 hospitals, they actually went a step further. So they not only put the nurses put the finger into the women anus just to kind of scoop out a little bit of feces, a little bit of residue of the feces, and they put it in the mouth of the child. I think, you know, this is extraordinary how we start learning more and more and more, because I think Dr. Natasha mentions that people are the only species who are disgusted by their own poop. And, and I'm not saying and recommending people now go to the toilet and eat your own poop. That's not what I'm saying, but there is so much treasure there. And, you know, one of your stories about the kangaroo just proves that microbiome in the poop helped heal that very own kangaroo's microbiome, which is fantastic. So Shantell, like based on those two stories, like your mom recovery and the kangaroo recovery, how do you utilize what you've learned from those two experiences when you work with your clients? Has anything changed? Have you been kind of inspired or impacted by those two situations on how you approach when you work with clients?
Yeah, it's, you know, when clients come to me, they've seen a doctor, they've been told, or, you know, pretty much you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life, or so there's not much we can do from here. I remember actually I had a chronic itch on the back of my neck, which, you know, histamine, yeast overgrowth. And I remember going to my doctor and they said, oh, it's called like a silent itch and we don't know what it's caused from, but, you know, here's a steroid cream. And I'm just, so, you know, I just steroid creams. But when my clients come to me, you know, they've seen a doctor. A lot of them, you know, have gone and seen naturopaths or, you know, someone in the holistic world, and a lot of supplements, and, you know, they're working great, but they still really haven't, you know, narrowed down to the diet. So they come to me quite unwell. And, you know, we just start that process of really trying to take a stress-free approach, because everything is so overwhelming. You know, we know the links, the gut, the brain, their mental health is not well. You know, there's so much fog there. And we just start implementing the stock. Start with the stock. You know, just bring in the stock. Even if it's a little bit, just bring in the stock. And then, of course, what Dr. Natasha will say, then we bring in more stock and, you know, start to eliminate the foods out. But yeah, I just find with my whole journey with working with clients, you know, I have so much compassion for them, because I know that they are and at the end of the road. You know, they've tried everything and it's heartbreaking, but you know when they come to you that you've got to the, you know, you're here and we're getting to the root cause, and you see them thriving within a matter of weeks. So it's the best, yeah, it's the best career that I've ever fallen into, because there's so much, love and healing and everything with our clients.
I absolutely agree with you. I think Dr. Natasha, when she created this protocol, I don't think she even imagined how much impact it's going to make on people globally. And yeah, I'm very privileged to be part of that as well. So I just wanted to kind of circle back to your psychosomatic experience as a practitioner. Like, how do you tie it together with the whole GAPS journey?
Yeah, so when I was doing GAPS, I noticed with my eczema that when there was kind of I guess a trauma story that would keep on coming up, you know, within my family dynamic, and this eczema would just pop up, and I ended up just having a few links, you know, where this story tied in, and I went and seen an SC therapist, so somatic experiencing therapist at the time, and whoa, it was just, I just released so much trauma from my body, and just got to see, you know, certain things that I was doing in my life, where these triggers came from, and really getting out of the story of the mind and coming into the body. to be able to tell the story, to be able to release this tension in my body where I was holding it within my body, within my organs, to be able to continue on my healing journey. So when I was doing gaps, I was seeing this so much in my clients. You know, they would go and visit, and I'd be the mother-in-law, and they would come back and be like, oh, I've had this food and it's caused this flare up. And I'm like, it's actually not the food. You know, let's go through what's happened. And you know, so I ended up studying in neuroaffective touch therapy, which is early developmental trauma. So really working with the client from them as a little baby all the way up to, you know, their adulthood, and just the mind body connection. We call it mind body dialogue, and being able to get them back into their body, to be able to regulate their nervous system themselves, to be able to feel, and from that release tension in their digestive system, which is a really big one. Yeah. So I've been able to like interconnect them together. I find gaps really allows the client to be able to even recognize that they are holding on to trauma, that they do have a story to tell. So, you know, when a client comes to me, I never start on the emotional work, you know, first. I always get them within, you know, their journey of gut health, and start to rebuild the gut microbiome and watch that fog just lift. And then we start talking about the emotions and trauma held within the body. And then we're so much more acceptable to receiving it. And then it's just this other puzzle, you know, within their journey. And yeah, it's incredible. I love that I have came across that within my journey, and then been able to incorporate that within my practice, and the results I've seen is just, yeah, incredible.
I agree. I think, you know, the GAPS foods are extraordinary when it comes to supporting all the biological and chemical processes in our body, because our body, so we've got our physical body, we've got that shell, we've got the microbiome, and that needs to be fed by the right foods rather than processed foods. But we're not only a shell, we also are I don't know, a ball of emotions. We hold to some traumas. We hold to some experiences where we have to work on the food and emotional and trauma as well at the same time. And I think they if somebody starts the GAPS journey, I think every single person always progresses into emotional healing, because many times I hear from the clients when they start healing on the GAPS journey, suddenly some of the emotions come up, whether it's like, oh my God, I've healed this, but now I feel this anger around my chest. I said, like, well, great, we're bringing it up. So now let's work on releasing and allowing that emotion to leave your body, so it doesn't affect you in the future. So I think what you're doing is like a beautiful combination of that holistic approach, that not only foods, but also the way we feel, the way we kind of, you know, move emotions from a very deep inside outside. Perhaps it even affects how we then think and how we then change our whole life. With the touch therapy, do you have to physically see the client and touch the client, or can you do it remotely?
Yeah, so with when COVID came, we weren't allowed to touch, so everything had to be online, and it was something that we just had to see what came of it and if it was going to work. And actually, all of us practitioners, we found that the online work, because the client was in their own home, they felt safe. We got to see results faster. So it does work online, yeah, really beautifully. So yeah, and what I love about it is, you know, we teach them self-touch, so they're not actually relying on us, because they can become quite dependent on us as a mother figure. So yeah, really being able to create that space within their home and within themselves, So I now see everyone all around the world, and it's great. And it's just, it is what it is, isn't it? With this online space, you know, I live off grid and I'm so with technology, I'm like, oh, but it is so beautiful that we get to connect with everyone around the world. We get to heal with everyone, you know, heal everyone around the world. So, yeah.
It's wonderful. And it just shows that energy doesn't see any, you know, borders. It doesn't see the border of the, I don't know, the brick wall. It doesn't see, there is nothing to stop energy flowing, and that healing can happen whether you are in the same time zone, whether you are in the same continent even. And that's wonderful. So Shantell, where people can find you if they wanted to reach out to you and get your help, where can they find you?
Yeah, so Gut Full of Health is my website. So it's probably the best place to connect with me, on Instagram, on Off Grid Stories. So they're, yeah, the two places that you can connect with me.
We'll add links to the show notes. So so if you would like to work and connect with Shantell, just please go to her website and follow her on Instagram. I love seeing your stories, because it just inspires me that, you know, there is another way of living, especially, you know, you living on so many acres of land in Australia, not far away from the ocean. It's a dream for many people, but, you know, you've achieved it, so so others can get inspired by your lifestyle. Shantell, I'm so grateful that we had this chat. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your the experience, especially your mom's story and the kangaroo story. And I hope that our listeners learned a lot, and your story and your mom's story inspired them to take action. And I'm very grateful to have you on my podcast.
Thanks so much, Monica. Thanks for having me.